What we have, the telephone, the telegraph, the incandescent bulb, right? The telegraph, the RCA, his master's voice, I forgot what you call it, the phonograph, right? And then you have the cars and the planes and the televisions and the internet, you know. Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel were arguing over every single thing that was created. Do you need it? Do you not need it? Right? The answer is you do not need it. Man lived before the invention. They existed. They got along without the invention. So what do you need the invention for? So that's what the Gemara says. Tov loy shaloi nivra. Better, man should not have been created. You don't need all this stuff. Aber achshav shenivra. Now that it is created, make the best of it. And that's what I told the guys there, right? You say it shouldn't have been created, it should have been created, we need them, we don't need them, and like, what's the state is there? You like it or not, the state is there. You like it or not, this is there, that is there, the internet is there, the cell phone, right? I will admit, I had last Monday night, which was December 25th, I had a silent night. I had a silent night because I left Israel at midnight on December 25th and there were no cell phones on the plane. It was silent night. Wherever I went on the plane, if I had to walk here and there, it was silent. You didn't have that tumult of the cell phone walking around and driving you crazy and what. Right? Like here, you come off the plane right away, everyone. It's amazing. It's really, the inventions that Hashem gave us are really amazing. But it depends how you use it. So, there you go. That's what we have. Does anyone have any questions about Brezhnev, about Rabbi Nachman? Things you wanted to know but were afraid to ask, you know? So ask. Ask. If I don't know the answer, we'll find someone to. Ask. I'll give you a few minutes, okay? Go ahead.
The Rebbe says that you should have a Seder of Kuturan and a Kiyas. How is there any equals for that? I mean, it's not such an easy Seder, even though the Rebbe says everyone should learn it. It's for everyone.
Learn it every day. Every day learn a little bit Likutei Moharan. Finish it and start again. Finish it, start again. And that way you'll end up being a Boki in Likutei Moharan.
So what happens when there's something you don't understand?
You don't understand it? Go weiter. Do you understand everything that you tackle? No. But you assume that you'll get back to it in one day and you'll understand it then. In Sichos Haran, Rabbi Nachman talks about that, and he says you should learn, start a sefer, learn, finish it, right, and take another sefer and learn, finish, and then you'll go back and start learning a second time. The second time you go over it, you'll understand it a lot better. And if you don't understand it then, you'll learn it the third time. Rabbi Nachman told him to learn Kabbalah. He was 24 at the time. He told him to learn Kabbalah. He says, but I don't understand everything. He said, make a mark, it was the Eitz Chaim. He says, make a mark in the Eitz Chaim what you don't understand. And next time, over, you'll be able to look at it with more knowledge and be different. And Rabbi Nachman did that a few times until all the marks he made disappeared. He was able to erase them. Well, that's what happens. A person can study and learn and get into whatever it is. The same thing goes for Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos, same thing goes for Mishnah, Chumash, Rashi. Whatever it is you're studying, you should go into it, study it. You don't understand something, so what? Right? Or like a friend of mine says, when you get on a plane, do you know how the plane works? Do you? but you trust that it'll work. So you get on the plane and you travel. The car, you drive in a car, you know how the car works, everything. You do what you can, whatever, you trust that this thing works. I don't understand it, I don't understand. So eventually you'll come to understand what you have to understand. Okay? Questions? Is that a hand up?
I have a lot of questions. I don't know where to begin.
Begin with whatever you think.
Well, right now I'm
You're
reading
blank.
through Fire and Water,
Okay.
and
That's what we're here for tonight, to speak about Reb Nosson, but go ahead.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
and I just have so many questions. But the last chapter I read was when he's now in Eretz Israel, and he didn't go to Yerushalayim.
Yeah.
Was there a reason, or was it just didn't happen?
It's logistically, it's
It was
called.
logistic. Okay, so there's no.
In those days, Yerushalayim was, it's a few, let's say it's about 100 miles from Tzfas. Give or take 120 miles from Tzfas. In those days, travel was by donkey. How comfortable do you feel in your Mercedes-Benz as opposed to a Mercedes donkey? Right? Think about it. You're sitting there, every step, right? By the way, I'm just going to interject this. I was with a couple of people in Ukraine this past summer, and we traveled to Berdichev, and from there to Polonoi, to Mezhebich, to Annapolis. The roads in Ukraine are terrible. Something like it was in Monticello about 1945. That's about the way it was. So Rabbi Nachman said, an angel is created from every step that you take to me. And we're sitting there, on the car. This is a car with springs and whatever, you think it's springs. So I told them, an angel is created every step that we take. In this case, you should know that two angels are created every step. Because one for going up, the other one coming down. Right? That's every step. You go up and down. For Nosson to travel, it was several days. A lot of it was through Arab villages, which were not always considered safe, even then, let alone now, right? But even then, villages were not safe. It wasn't easy travel. Very, very difficult travel to go from Tzfas to Yerushalayim and back. Rabbi Nachman, when he was in Eretz Israel, also did not go to Yerushalayim. And he made a pact with somebody on the boat before they landed that they will go to Yerushalayim together. But it didn't work out. And it's a several-day journey. Right? When I was in Eretz Israel, 1962, right, it was a 5.5 hour journey, depending if you caught the bus or not, from Yerushalayim to Tzfas. 5.5 hours then. Today you can make it in a little over 2 hours. But in those days, it was you had to go to Haifa, then you had to take a bus here and a bus there, and through Akko, whatever. That was 62, not 1830. It was very different, very different. Okay?
Yeah, but how's that? It's not really an answer. Because how does it compare to getting there in the first place? That was crazy
Right,
just
I
to
mean,
get there.
and
Well,
it's
getting
also-
to Eretz Israel, there
he-
was several
he chose-
months.
He chose the port that would take him to Tzfat first. He could have chosen the port that would.
No,
take
he
him-
couldn't. They didn't have
He could have
traffic
gone to
like they
Jaffa-
have
He
today.
could have gone to Jaffa port, but he
You
went.
can today take a plane from anywhere you want to Tel Aviv, right? In those days, it wasn't that way. You couldn't get a plane. You had to change the plane. I'm talking 50 years ago, or whatever. In those days, ships were not that common. They did ply the seas, but they weren't that common between destinations.
Well,
Right, you had-
he went from Alexandria,
Yeah,
and he
They
had
had
a
to
choice.
stop at
He had a
Sidon.
choice to go to Jaffa port,
yeah.
Haifa port, or to
Sidon. That's where he
Right,
got
yeah,
off.
right. And that's
Right?
what, he decided he
Sidon.
wanted to go to Tzfat.
Yes.
So
That's
he
where
went
he
to
was
one of
going,
his-
because that's where the community he was going to be with. And to go from Sidon to Tzfas was one day travel by donkey, as opposed to a couple of days from Haifa to Tiberias to Tzfas and whatnot. And that's why. Right? You have to remember the travel conditions in those days. Okay? I mean, look at the Jews. They wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael from Egypt. How far is it? You can do it in a 10-hour bus, but they took 40 years.
7 days. 7 days.
The trip itself was so unbelievably difficult that
Yeah.
I just thought, he's there already.
And there wasn't a ship every day, right? He had to wait a few weeks for the
Oh,
trip.
yeah, it was unbelievable.
Right, and he had to go
Unbelievable.
this direction, that direction. They didn't have engines. The ships had to travel by wind. Had to set up the sails, take down the sails, set up the sails, take down the sails.
Storm.
It wasn't
yeah.
easy, right? But he had an iron will, and he decided to go to Eretz Yisrael,
Yeah.
and he went. Right? How many Jews today from America would make the trip if they had to go by ship? Right? Right?
It was unbelievable. Reading that, it was absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, when I wrote the book, Fire and Water, I couldn't let go. I wrote it in 4 months.
Wow.
Right? It's like
Wow.
600 pages. But
Wow.
how did that happen? How could that have happened? Not because of me, but because I found myself living with Reb Nosson 24 hours a day, 7 days a week when I was writing it. Living with him. I mean, I had to go through all the trials and tribulations, figure out what to put in the book, what not to put in the book, how to describe it so that people could put yourself in Reb Nosson's mind and see, what he was thinking, and then come out. So I would work from the morning until my eyes were shutting. And then I closed the machine, I went home, I slept, I came back in the morning and started again. That's how the book went out. And he was the most fascinating character, Reb Nosson, most fascinating character. And when I finished the book, I said, Hashem, thank you. And I have to tell you that having spent all this time with Reb Nosson, every day, I haven't the faintest idea who this person was. I still don't. It's 20 years, 25 years since I don't remember how long it was. You can tell from the copyright. But I have no idea who Reb Nosson was. No idea. The man was just, there's Hashem, and Rabbi Nachman's teachings could help us come close to Hashem. So therefore, I'm going to look for Hashem, and I'm also going to do whatever I can to spread Rabbi Nachman's teachings so that everybody could feel Hashem. That's who Rabbi Nosson was. And how do you do that? If you're a parent, father, a mother, you give yourself up for your children, right? You sacrifice yourself. And would you sacrifice yourself for your children like Reb Nosson sacrificed for Rabbi Nachman? I doubt it. I doubt it. But he put himself in such a position that there's Rabbi Nachman's teachings. He writes in his autobiography, it was 1808, Rabbi Nachman passed away in 1810. But he writes at the period, at that time, Rabbi Nachman went to Lemberg, which is now Lvov. It's in Belarus. He traveled there for medical reasons. He had tuberculosis and whatnot. And Rabbi Nachman came back from there, and he taught teachings slightly different, kind of a different level of what he taught before. And Reb Nosson writes in the autobiography that from that year on, I feel that the main legacy of Rabbi Nachman that we have is from that year on. That's true. Now, he was blown away from Rabbi Nachman when he first came, 6 years earlier. At the same time, what he's looking at and understanding his perception, he says, I then realized that Rabbi Nachman is a Rebbe for the entire world. He didn't realize that till then. He thought Rabbi Nachman, is great and he's funny, he can help a lot of people and whatnot. But he felt that at that time, in 1808, he began to realize that Rabbi Nachman is a Rebbe for everybody, for all generations. And that's when he began to visualize what it means to get out Rabbi Nachman's teachings, what it means to spread it, to teach it, and to share with others anything and everything that he had. And he did it. Right? Could you understand someone like that? His whole life didn't matter. It's what Rabbi Nachman taught that matters. Put yourself in a position that you could take Torah and spread it out all over the world, right? And you don't exist. Just as a mirror to reflect the teachings for everybody else to partake of. That was Reb Nosson. But it worked. It worked, right? Reb Nosson was able to take Rabbi Nachman. What we understand today from Rabbi Nachman is all through Reb Nosson. It's all through him. He's the one who brought out the teachings, the vitality of the teachings, the viability of the teachings, everything that you could more or less imagine what Rabbi Nachman meant. Did you have an ear implant?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem. I always wonder about people who walk around with that thing in there. I always think it's an implant. Modern technology, we talked about it before you came. How are you doing? How do you feel?
I love you, great.
That's good. So anyway, the koyach of Reb Nosson is such that every one of us could also do the same thing. Maybe not on Reb Nosson's scale, that would be hard. But every one of us could learn from a master, like Reb Nosson did. Every one of us could take a teaching and reflect it and share it with somebody else so that somebody else is able to partake of you, of what you have. That's the power of Reb Nosson. Even we could do something good. Right? Are there any questions on this? Any questions on this? Ask. Please. It saves me the job of thinking what to say.
So how do we apply to what Rav Nosson and all his teachings and Breslevs, and people go around with all the svarim, the books and information that's given, that we should enjoy our lives and we should always be happy, and with how the Rabbanim lived back in the day, and even the Sefer that you wrote, or Rabbi Arush, and living with Amunah and Betachan. How do we today apply their way of living with tragedies that are happening today in like real life, and we try to, me personally, I go to a shir and feel inspired. I'm like, wow, I'm going to change myself, I'm going to be a better person, and like 24 hours, I'm back to myself again. I'm like, maybe I should have never left the house. Like, I come here and people open up their homes and you have speakers and share, and like, how do we apply that to today's life and keep it?
Let's start off by saying that how do you hear something and keep it so that it doesn't wear off is almost not an option, because we are human. And because we are human, we have ups and downs. And sometimes I feel I'm flying high. And other times I'm in the lowest position I ever was in my life. I'm depressed, whatever. No one speaks about it more or at length and in better detail than Reb Nosson himself, what goes over a person. Okay, but that's understand that if you don't, at the end of the day, you know, I was so inspired. What happened, right? The very fact that you're asking what happened is a plus, because that means you really want it to happen. But I just didn't make it this time. I can make it next time. So now let's go back to the question. We ask, what's going on? We ask Hashem to help us. We're supposed to, that's his spoidedus, that's Rabbi Nachman's major teaching. Speak to God every day. As a friend of mine says, how could you ever establish a relationship with someone with whom you never speak? Right? You never speak to Hashem, how could you ever establish a relationship with him? Okay, so we ask Hashem, help me, bring me closer, let me understand, let me feel. You want me to keep Shabbos, you want me to keep tefillin and tzitzis, help me feel something for it, help me feel part of the tribe, that I can have some Yiddishkeit, let me feel it, let me be inspired and whatnot. You feel it, but you're a human being who goes up and who goes down. You're a human being who has flaws and who has tremendous strength and beautiful insights and wonderful feelings. And you can accomplish a tremendous amount, right? How you develop it is up to you. And why it doesn't work or whatever, because there's somebody called the Sahara. Right? And he's been in there. There was a Brestlev Chassid. His name was Reb Shapsai. He was a shoemaker, poor, simple guy, but they called him Shapsai Brestlev. Right? And the greater Brestlev Chassidim would say to him, "We're very jealous of you that they call you Brestlev." Well, what was his good point? His great point is that in the cold Ukrainian winters, and I think we believe now there can be such cold Ukrainian winters, but in the cold Ukrainian winters, you would find him in shul 3 o'clock in the morning, 3:30 in the morning, he would be there. There, his sunrise was 7:30, 7:45, but he would be there 3 o'clock. The man was in his 80s, he was retired, but he would be one of the first people in shul. And they'd ask him, Shapsa, how did you get to shul so early? He said, well, I'll tell you the truth. I woke up, I was warm under the covers, and I said, I'm going back to sleep, whatever. And I got this feeling, why get up? After all, it's warm. You don't have to go face that freezing cold, dark, bleak Ukrainian winters. And then I would realize, well, who's talking to me and telling me this? Right, my Yetzirah. But he was born with me, so therefore he's as old as I am. And he's already on the job. Right? He's already on the job. So if that's the case, so then why shouldn't I go on the job? So he would get up out of bed and go to shul. Question is, how much of it becomes? Reb Nosson writes in the halacha, he says there's serving Hashem, right? He goes on the story of the exchanged children. There was a midwife who helped the queen give birth, and at the same time there was a maidservant in the palace that gave birth. And she wanted to see what would happen if the kids were switched. So the prince, she put by the maidservant, and the servant's kid, he put by the princess, by the queen. And he goes talking, the Rebbe has a whole story, it's not the time for this story now. But the Rebbe is using the words a ben HaMelech and a ben HaShivcha, right? A slave and a prince. Just to see how Reb Nosson views the story, just to give us a little insight, right? The ben HaMelech is Yitzchak Avinu. Who's the ben HaShivcha? Yishmael, right? You can see that this is a true story, right? Yishmael is the ben HaShivcha, and Yitzchak is the true prince, and yet